Good morning, beautiful artists. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Let me just double check. Make sure I'm not running into that. Just want to do a quick sound check here, make sure that this is live and working. Okay, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Live and working. Good. Okay. Okay, everyone, if you're here, I can't get my hair to stay back today. Stay back. If you're here, let me know who's here. Hi, Marty. Happy Valentine's Day. So this is day 5 of working on this painting. I hope that you've enjoyed this week. Today, I am going to be wrapping this up in under an hour. Hi, Aphrodite. So good to see you. Hello, Gail Knowles. Happy Valentine's Day. Good morning, Hedda. So good to see all of you here. And I hope that this has been a valuable share. It's been so enjoyable for me to work on this week, just like 1 hour at a time, from the start, from setting everything up. So if you missed the first video and you want to watch this all the way through, it's all here on my Facebook page. Art Life School members, we will be getting this in your permanent Art Life School library for future use as well. So if you can't watch these all right now or this week, or if life is just busy or you don't have time to paint along right now, don't worry, Art Life School members, they will be in your library permanently. And for those of you who are not Art Life School members, they'll be available here on my Facebook page for the month of February for this 20-day challenge. So I am doing a 20-day February challenge for myself and also sharing what I'm doing with all of you. I'll be here every morning, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, friendly reminder that throughout February, I'm giving away one of my DVDs each week to a member of my newsletter list. You can go to Art Life with Kelly, KELLI.com. Please don't go to kellyfolsom.com. That email list is not for the DVD giveaway. So artlifewithkelly.com. This is where I also send out lesson emails and all kinds of, my podcast emails. So if you're already getting announcements about workshops and new master classes and all of that, if you're already getting those emails, or if you're an Art Life School member, you're automatically on the list. If you're not getting those emails and you want to be included in the giveaway, go to artlifewithkelly.com. You can sign up for any of the freebies that are there. There's a free step-by-step process, a PDF, very similar to what I'm painting here today. For still life, you can grab that. That is a step-by-step guide of how I create a painting like this in writing with images. There's also a whole free oil painting for beginners masterclass. I highly recommend that, especially if you're a total beginner or you're just getting started or you haven't been oil painting or painting period that long, and you also are interested in still life. I walk you through, you get the material list for the spotlight and paints and all the things, everything gets explained to you in that. That's a $500 value that you can get absolutely for free just on my website. That's just me trying to help beginners get started. I have to tell you, it's pretty funny. Last couple of weeks, I've just been playing around with pottery, and I bought a pottery wheel, and I've just been doing it just for fun. And it is really hard to find high quality free education, even on YouTube. So I've watched so many YouTube videos just on how to center the clay, just the basics, and a lot of the content that's out there really skips over a lot of the basics and the beginner information. So that's part of why I offer that oil painting for beginners masterclass absolutely free. Also, there's a 5-day still life painting challenge, and that's really I used to run it as a challenge, as a 5-day challenge, but really that is another step-by-step process. And it's also very good for beginners, or if you're wanting to learn more about still life painting. Each day builds one on top of the other. So that's also an excellent option if you're new to still life or if you're new to oil painting. Both of those, grab both of those as well. And both of those are on the website, artlifewithkelly.com. That one is like $150 value. And again, I give that away for free to help people out there who are wanting to get started and looking for high quality, education, which sometimes is hard. There's a ton of free stuff out there, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find like really good quality, education and information out there. And whenever you get on either one of those lists, you'll be included in the giveaway. This is a DVD of 5 painting lessons. And so I'm giving one of those away a week. We've already had 3 winners for that this month. So congratulations. And I've already shipped out a couple of those this month. So, all right, everybody, we're going to get going here. And I'm definitely going to wear a apron today. Monty is taking me on Monty and I are going on a very romantic stroll down memory lane today, driving through Old Lyme, Connecticut, where we went to art school and met at art school. And so that's going to be super fun. We haven't been up there yet. Since we've moved back, we're about maybe half an hour to 40 minutes away from that town, Old Lyme, Connecticut, where we met and fell in love so many years ago, and where I bought this ginger jar probably 13, 14, 15 years ago in Old Lyme, Connecticut. So anyway, so I am super motivated to finish this painting up so that I can go on a romantic outing today with the love of my life, Monty. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. So good to see you, Maria and Eva. Kathy Michaels. Oh, you're so welcome, Kathy. This has really been so good for me this month, to get back in the groove of painting and just kind of mix it up and play and kind of go with, whatever feels inspiring to me in the moment. So because I'm wearing this pretty white shirt, I am going to put on an apron this morning. Most of the time I don't get paint on me, but today would be the day with this pretty white shirt on. Okay, and this is my Le Foodist. This is where I took cooking classes in France. I had a silver brush apron somewhere and I cannot find it anywhere. They just sent me one and darn it, I hope I haven't lost it. Okay, let's get going. I'm going to have this close by here in case you have any questions. If you missed yesterday's, we moved into the finishing stage, or what I call stage 3 of the painting. Hi, Kathy Kepler. So good to see you. You can see today using more thin layers and also more earth tones. It's getting that kind of chalky look as it's drying. Again, you don't have to worry about that. Once it's fully dry and you varnish, all of the richness of the color will come back. Let me see. I'm going to just lower this a little bit more. And if you're looking for the reference photo, it is posted on my Facebook page. So you can just go download it from there. As I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to be working predominantly in this area. I started at the end of the painting and I'm kind of working my way back. And I'm choosing to go more, we got more sunshine coming in. today. So I'm going to close these blinds a little bit so I don't have too much light on my painting, because that will actually make my painting darker, which seems a little counterintuitive. But the more light you have on your painting, the more lit up everything looks. It actually looks more lighted than what it is. So your painting will turn out darker if you're painting in too much light. Just be conscientious of that. Hello. Oh my gosh, Lucy, that's true. I have a red heart on my palette. That's amazing. You are so observant. I love that. And such a romantic too. I love you have such a romantic sensibility. Okay. And you know what too? I found a heart-shaped potato yesterday in the bag of potatoes. I was like, oh, look, there's a heart. Okay, we might have to leave that on there since it's Valentine's Day. Super cute. All those little things that just make life fun, right? Just noticing all those sweet little moments. Okay, so first thing I do, of course, is reload anything on my palette that needs to be reloaded, or if it's dried out. I just check for that. So need more alizarin crimson. And look, I went and got, oh no, wait, I got my nails done Wednesday. Isn't that a cute color? It's like a soft, sparkly pink. I love that. I think I did that Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. So you saw it yesterday. Such a nice treat doing things for ourselves, doing loving, kind, generous things for ourselves and for others. But definitely making sure we're doing them for ourselves too, because some of us can give a lot to other people and caretake lots of other people in our life, and sometimes we can forget about ourselves. Okay. And if it's not nails for you, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's going on a walk. Maybe it's doing a little painting. Maybe it's going antique shopping or bird watching or going to a happy place. Even this Kremnitz white is still wet, so all of this should still be good from yesterday. Okay, I don't even really need to check the cadmium's the driest one. Yesterday was burnt sienna, but I haven't really been using a lot of that in this painting, very, very little. So, okay, and then ultramarine blue will still be wet. Everything else I put out fresh. Good morning. Hello, Robin. Good to see you here. Okay, so I started by kind of repainting these. I'm trying to see what color. Oh, wait, we need repainting those grapes yesterday. I need some not Merige, liquid light gel, some medium. Some ooey gooey stuff. So if any of that is bothering you, you can definitely, put some medium over it just to, assuage your fear that that's actually what the color looks like. No, the color actually looks like this. It's just that it's in the drying stage. So if you really want to see it, need to see what it actually looks like, you can use some of your medium. In traditional painting, where you're not using a speed drying medium, they would maybe use a little bit of stand oil or something like that to bring back these colors. I've heard of people doing like a retouch varnish. You just want to be careful that you don't do this over parts of your painting that are not fully dry yet. So even like some of this red may not fully be dry that I applied yesterday, maybe just in the thinner parts like here. However, don't confuse this kind of glaze of medium as wet paint. It's not wet paint. You're not re-wetting the paint underneath if you're using a speed drying medium. It's unless it's not fully dry, and then you'll kind of lift some of the paint. It's just kind of bringing back the color and the value of what it looked like whenever it was first laid down. So some of this red is not fully dry, so it is kind of, just lifting a little bit of it. But don't get it confused thinking, oh, this paint is wet again, and you can use it you can lift, that red paint. You can't. Okay, it's not that wet. So don't get that confused either. To work on this ginger jar, I am going to have to go back into the red cloth and kind of re-wet some of that paint in some areas. Same thing with, the Luminera. So I just want to point that out. That is one main difference, I would say, of working on a dry painting. So I'm going to start once again just pulling out a few of these highlights on the grapes. And I'm both looking at the grapes, but also trying to concentrate the eye front and center, and also on the grapes that are on top and more in light. Not all of the grapes we're not seeing a highlight on all of the grapes. So the right-hand side of the bunch is more in cast shadow. Okay, so all of these grapes kind of over here, kind of more in cast shadow from the grapes in the center. The grapes in the center are kind of sitting on top, and they are blocking light from these grapes on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to start by looking a little bit closer at the separation of these lit up grapes versus the shadow grapes with some ivory black and alizarin crimson. This feels a little less daunting to work on than the ginger jar or the Luminera right off the bat. So I'm just going to allow myself to kind of get a bit warmed up here. If you do have any kind of impasto or pieces of paint that's creating texture that you don't like, you can always just use your palette knife to kind of scrape it back. Or, if you got little boogers, just use your knife to kind of scrape those off if you don't want those. Again, the more detailed I went over here, basically I have to go just as detailed on, this ginger jar, or, kind of pull it up to that level, basically. So just keep that in mind. Like if you decide to go super detailed, you have to make sure that the rest of the painting is feeling similar in style. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back into my ginger jar. One thing I was thinking is I think I want to make it a little bit bigger than what it is. I'm going to start with some white, some yellow ochre, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I think I want it to grow just a little bit. And then that color and that paint I put down the first day, the second day, it can just get that much more lit up. The main thing you want to try to do is kind of go in the same direction of the brushstrokes that you made on the first day, or else you might get, some really kind of awkward textures. And even that I think is okay. Some of this I might just kind of scumble over here, some of the pattern. So you will just have more textural effects in working on a dry painting, just so you know. And then I want to start kind of transitioning some of that light and that color a little bit darker as we go down the form. Still using the same colors, just less white in the mix. I did get a little bit of red in my brush from those grapes. We don't want that. It starts looking a little brown and muddy. So if you get too much red in the mixture, just add back in a little bit of yellow and blue and white to get this kind of neutral off-white color. really try to wipe some of that out of my brush as well. And if you're not using a speed drying medium, then some of this paint may still be wet, especially if you used a titanium white. Your paint actually might still be wet. So you may not have to repaint as much as I am, since the last time I worked on this was 2 days ago on this jar. Now, I really want to try to graduate that value a little bit darker. I'm going to kind of push it a bit more extreme, more of the blue, more of the yellow ochre, definitely less white. As we come down the form, really this is more of just a straight up and down cylinder. So the value doesn't change that much. So if I see like a little peekaboo in there. Now, once we get down here where there's more of a curve, that's where the value is going to change more dramatically. And I'm thinking I would like to have more of the red showing up in there. So for that shadow color, I'm going to switch to some black and yellow ochre. And same thing like on the edge into shadow here. Just kind of soften into that shadow. I just want a bit of a murky kind of color into shadow here. I kind of want to quiet all of this down, I think. Just have that kind of disappear a bit. We don't really need to look at that. Sometimes the challenge painting from life is like we're painting as a part of the setup and our eyes are really focusing there. And so we see all the detail and all the things, but try to see if you can pull your attention back to the light or back to the star of the show, and kind of see those areas more in your peripheral vision. You can also just kind of squint. That's where the infamous squint came from, is to kind of blur out some of these less important areas, less dominant areas. So just made it a little bit wider. Kind of re-wetting my shadow here. Remember that the value of your shadow, even if it's a white object, you want to make sure that your value and color of your shadow feels, or I'd say more than color is, less than color is like the temperature, feels related to your background, the value of your background. So doing a darker painting like this means that you want to make sure that you are going, dark enough in that background. And then all of this I need to kind of be wet so that I can manipulate edges a bit better. So I'm coming back in with this dark red, which is the ivory black and some alizarin crimson. Some of that red from yesterday was still a little bit damp, or still a little wet. Hadn't totally dried yet, so I can kind of mix that in. So I'm thinking getting some of that reddish flavor in this underplane. Just really push the depth of that darker. Oops. And can even add in a little tiny bit of red glow. I don't want to go too far with that because I think the lemon glow is more important. So I want to keep the value of this red. I want the red to be there, but I don't want it to be too bright. We don't really need a lot of reflected light there to move the eye from point A over here to point C. Maybe more than anything, maybe a little more reflected light in this grape that's in front would be helpful. The eye is going to follow lights, so just keep that in mind. Restating some of the reflected light here, I like to kind of start it a little softer. And I'm kind of got my brush at a perpendicular angle and just kind of dragging that yellow in with that grayish tone that I just put down. And then whenever I'm ready to really push a little more reflected light, I'll make a more distinct brush stroke, kind of a sharper edge. And if you want to go a little bit lighter and cooler, and do a little cad lemon there. If you feel like that got a little too hard edge, just come back in with your shadow color. I'm barely even touching the painting right now, to tell you the truth. Okay, that kind of creates a nice bit of glow, and so the eye can kind of move along the path here from left to right. So just let me know if you guys have any questions. Now, the other thing I'm still kind of playing with is, do I make the grapes stand out by putting some of the dusting on them and taking the background darker? Or do I make the background kind of more of a fiery red? Yesterday, I kind of made the red a little bit lighter and brighter, and now I am a bit second guessing. I'm well, not second guessing, but just curious which way I like better. Do I like the dusting, making them stand out better, or just a dark silhouette? My gut's telling me dusting today. That kind of frosty look. But basically, you just have to have enough contrast in order to have something stand out. And actually, that background is still reading as a dark. I'm going to get some more paint here that I'm going to re-wet that, because that's just the liquid, because I want to also get the halation around the jar, ginger jar, especially on that top left side. So I'm going to put in some black and burnt umber. Just kind of take this, bring back in maybe some of that shadow. Red is such a powerful color. Sometimes it can start to become a little bit overwhelming whenever we have a ton of it in a painting. So I'm curious about neutralizing a little bit of that red in the background, keeping it maybe more up in the foreground, more of the saturation of the color up in the foreground, less in the background. So just adding in maybe some burnt umber, kind of neutralize some of that red, quiet it down. I'll also need some of this wet paint to work on my Luminara, which is coming next. Maybe up here too, this can kind of get a little bit quieter. Just using a large, soft-haired flat brush. Just kind of glazing some of this thinner, darker color over this. You can also just kind of obliterate maybe some of the edges of the Luminara. Sometimes I do things like that so that just psychologically I'm not too attached to what I did the day before. Same thing kind of down here, I think, quieting more of this area. My whole idea was to make sure that the eye stays moving from left to right, so kind of don't want it coming down too much into these away from that movement. It'd be different if you were doing a vertical painting perhaps, or a circular movement. This is a left to right, movement. So kind of making some of those other spaces more passive, less active. Hey. Hey, Lynn, we're so happy you're here. Fashionably late. I love that. I'm going to tilt this. I'm seeing a little bit of glare on the camera. Okay, now to get some of that halation, see how hard edge that is right there. Need a little bit of halation around that edge. I'm going to reach for a little bit of my Cab Red Light. You don't just want to mix white into this because it will, just make pink on a dark red background, and you don't want that. So I'm going to go more for the Cab Red Light. I make a pretty strong edge. It's not going to look, you can also add a little bit of yellow ochre to cool that off. I make a pretty strong edge all along this edge. I'm not actually softening the lit edge. I'm just making the light look like it's emanating off of the edge. You can also do that over here, just on the top right, because this whole plane on the top plane is lit up. So this would be a little bit softer looking though. Light would just kind of escape a bit off of that plane, so to speak, kind of emanate off of that top plane. So you can do it over here too, I would say just a little bit weaker, and that just kind of gives this atmospheric glow. Now, this side, the lit side, the really lit side, I just want to make sure that I get that strong enough without, blending it in too much. We'll blend that edge here in a moment. But if you make this too big on a super dark background or blend it out too much, then you kind of lose the overall value of your background. So once I have that as lit up as I want, which is like, whoa, Nellie, that's really lit up. It doesn't look right now. And then you take it and blend it in with a other wet paint that you just put down to make it look more subtle. Be careful using too much medium. I just grabbed too much medium. Especially if you're a beginner, I would say definitely try to shoot for using lots more paint, less medium. As you develop, you can, learn how to use more medium appropriately, but 9 times out of 10, you need more paint, less medium. And in fact, for a total beginner, you may even want to try to paint without any medium at all, and even without mineral spirits at all in the beginning, just so that you get comfortable using the paint and the oiliness of oil paint in particular, and how to make brushstrokes. And because you can't make brushstrokes with thin paint, like what I'm doing right now is not really making brushstrokes. So if you want to learn how to make distinct brushstrokes, try not using so much paint or so much medium, sorry. Okay. Also, the more medium you use, the weaker the paint film is going to be, and it's going to make your painting more susceptible to cracking in the future with thinner, more medium layers, So just be mindful of that. I'm just trying to make that, look more kind of blended in. And also use like a soft-haired brush. I just kind of got too much medium in my mixture, so I'm trying to counteract that. And also kind of smooth out some of that in the background too. Yay, thank you, Arena. So sweet. I'm so glad that that is jazzing you up. So just replacing things like a highlight that I covered up from before. Sometimes whenever you're working multiple sittings on something, the other thing that can happen is you lose your overlapping edges. So like this, the lip of this vase needs to feel like it is in front of the background, not the other way around. And because I was just working on the background, it kind of started, background started looking like it was overlapping the jar. Things like, there's a little bit of backlight there on that lip. You can, really take as much time as you need to, create sort of this spotlight effect on the vase. You can, make this more dramatic right here, more lit up, kind of make this transition from the most lit up part of the form to less lit, more drama filled, or, just basic. When I say more drama filled, like really increasing the value contrast between those two zones, so you can take as much time as you need to do that. Taking a little more red reflection in some of the shadow from the background. So since the red cloth is both behind and underneath, you can get some red in on the underplanes as well as on the shadow plane. Do not put red into the lip plane, please. Red value is darker in value than white of the vase. So, and you also just don't want red and white, just, starts to look like a bloody mess, which we don't want. So just putting in some of my ultramarine blue. Again, I would caution you against using too much medium here. You can use a little bit, but just some solid ultramarine blue paint. I'm just have my brush kind of flat to the canvas. And the main thing I'm conscientious of here is trying to make sure I don't kill the spotlight effect too much, because that's really such a satisfying zone. So I'm kind of starting in the halftones, or more the local color tone without light influencing the local color, and in the shadows. So in the shadows, I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson. Let's get it a little more red, a little bit darker in value as we come over into shadow. This is also going to create some nice lost edges on this side, because now the darker value of the blue is going to tie together with the dark value of the background behind it. And you don't have to copy the pattern exactly, every bit of the pattern. I'm kind of maybe picking and choosing parts of the pattern that I think are more beneficial. But you also don't want to put the pattern on just willy-nilly, just not observing it at all. I would, definitely caution you against doing that, because it can start to look really amateur, so you do want to observe the pattern, but you don't have to be a slave, to painting all of the pattern. Again, we've got, kind of very little contrast here right now with the grape against the ginger jar. You can kind of get these areas in your painting where you've got a lot going on. And so, in a lot of the values are similar. So you've got to bring in some contrast. It can be value contrast. And on grapes, dark grapes, I think you have two options. You can either make it a darker edge against the thing that's behind it, or you can go with the dusting and make it a lighter edge than the thing that's behind it. So you can pick and choose, the dusting to make it stand out, or you can keep it like here where the background, here, the background red cloth is kind of lighter in value along that darker edge of the grape. Okay, so it's like, look here, now look here. All right, back to the blue. I'm going to add a little bit of white into my ultramarine blue. This is a really nice ultramarine blue. This one's from Charvan. Just building in some of that pattern. I'm probably not going to put that pattern that's on the very top, with the stripe and all that. Maybe I'll kind of create little stripe just a little bit, but not like the whole shindig that's going on up there. I think it's going to be too much. It's going to cover up all my light shape and kind of be too much. I'm just kind of really dragging some of this blue over the wet color underneath. You can also use pattern to kind of soften the effect of light into shadow, where it makes it less noticeable. Yay, Trish. So glad that Trish Greenfield, so glad that you're enjoying this. And then I want to work on that Luminera. So especially whenever you know that you're nearing completion, stay focused, be mindful of the time. I'm just kind of talking to myself here, like what all really needs to be done, especially if you are on a time constraint, like if you just have that much time to work on a painting, and also all of us know how sometimes we think we have more time than we do in life. Something happens and we get interrupted. So it's kind of a good idea to try to do with less time than you think you have, in my opinion. Just trying to glaze in some of the red on some of these back planes. Sometimes people get concerned about these little bumpies and whatnot in the paint. I wouldn't be terribly concerned about that. Keep in mind too, you will also have the benefit of, varnishing once this dries, and the varnish will kind of, fill in some of the gaps. Just using some ultramarine blue, cad yellow deep, but also a little bit of red, so that green doesn't just scream at us, to put in a couple of stems here and there. Stems are really nice in these grapes because they help kind of separate out, just this mass of grapes. You could also start to tie in a little bit of blue here and there on these grapes to kind of, just very, very small pieces of broken color that can kind of connect with the blue on the vase. So little touches that we can do like that. All right, moving up to the Luminera, I'm pretty much using, similar color to what I used on the base, and which is the ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, a little bit of white, or say Naples yellow. I'm going to start with some more solid paint. You can also use black if it feels too colorful. Black and Naples yellow is nice too. Just kind of creates kind of a neutral. That's going to be a little bit cooler in temperature. It looks like, especially with all this red, it's going to look even colder. So if you need to warm it up, just grab, something in the red family, a burnt umber. But I definitely need to begin with some more solid paint, even some of just this background color and some. Don't forget you've got shadow planes underneath. So I'm trying to be conscientious of which ones of these are in front, which ones are behind. Squinting can definitely be a powerful tool here, especially if you're painting from life. On this side, maybe more burnt umber in the mix, dropping some of the light on some of these. Not all of them are that lit up. Plus I would like to have a movement of light from left to right, where it just doesn't get hit with like full light, bam, right away, like full climax of light. A little more yellow ochre in this one to pull it forward. Just a touch. And then, like, one thing I talked about the other day was, or yesterday, I think it was, whenever we were working on these over here, these I want to be, more lit up. But one thing I talked about was like making sure that you're going for the finishing effects that are going to bring out the characteristic or essence of that object. And one of the things for that on these Luminara is making sure that you get enough of the highlights and enough of the sharp, edges that are on them. So this one is kind of all by itself. Don't hesitate to put some of that red in there. So this one's closer to the ginger jar as well. So I would like it to look a little more illuminated, a little more lit up than the rest. Another thing that, in order for this to be called complete, that it has to have would be, the branches. And those are also really nice because they overlap in front of the background. Of course, it shows that these are actually branches, just not some weird thing floating in space like clouds. Some of the branches are light against dark. Some of them are dark against light on the shadow side. So you'll want to use your palette knife to do both. And I really showed in detail, I think it was yesterday, ways to do that with your palette knife, loading that onto your palette knife. So if you missed that more in-depth showing, go back to yesterday's video. I'm going to use some black, Cad Yellow Deep, a little bit of alizarin for this cast shadow. I'm not putting in quite as many layers this Luminara that I'm seeing, but I do want to, with the time remaining, at least bring out, a couple of layers here. This can be, well, I'm going to say it can be fun, but I also know that depending on what level you're at in your development, this can feel like a total nightmare. So I definitely understand that feeling. I've been there, done that, where it's like, there is no way I can paint that, and that's okay. Like if you know that, okay, this is just going to be, horrendous. I don't feel up to the task yet to handle this kind of subject matter, then don't paint it. Don't do it. Leave it out, or paint something else. Maybe you feel more comfortable with a sprig of just like typical eucalyptus or something. So I think we do have to be careful feeling like, oh, I have to, tackle that now. I mean, it took me forever to even get my courage up to tackle roses, for example. I would paint other flowers that I felt like, maybe were going to be less complicated for the longest time until I finally got my courage up to, not even just courage, but just, like I just knew that I wasn't there yet, that I wasn't capable, didn't have the foundation, the understanding to really tackle it. And every time I tried it, I felt super overwhelmed. So that's okay. You got to have to kind of trust where you're at in your development, and we have to not be so hard on ourselves for that. So it's kind of like don't bite off more than you can chew, but also try to make sure that you are challenging yourself enough as well. Just creating a nice sharp edge there. And sometimes some things it's just psychological, like it's maybe it just feels like it's going to be too hard. So creating a sharper edge there where it's catching light, a little more yellow and white, where some of those seeds or like it's kind of like little, almost looks like little dimples or creases or folds that sometimes catch the light too. This one is really catching more light here. I'm going to kind of outline it with the light and then soften in between. Main thing with leaves or petals is that they're sharp on the outside, soft on the inside. And then because these are very translucent, there's a lot of whatever the background color is showing through the value and color of the background. I'll also just close my light blocker just a little bit more because I feel like too much light was just hitting on all of that. Yeah. Because these are translucent as well, you have to really look at the angle of them, and boy, they're just going all different angles. But basically, much like glass, they're darker on the left side, and then since that's my lit side, my light's coming from that direction, and then light tends to catch or pass through more on the right hand side, much like a piece of glass or something like that. And so you have translucency, then you have, pieces that are very, very solid and iridescent. Let's see, I'm going to do a little bit of blue in with that white to try to get some of that silvery quality, that cool versus warm. So yeah, the Luminara is definitely more complex of a thing to paint. It's kind of like painting a million pieces of glass, a mixture of glass and leaves at all different angles. A little more light in here on that one. Yay, Cindy! So glad you're looking forward to finishing this. Good, good, good. And I always say, like, if you have been working on this and this just feels like too much, I always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I would rather eliminate something like this in my paintings than to throw out the whole painting and treat the whole painting as like, I just couldn't get that one. No, I would rather just take out the Luminara personally if it were me. If I just couldn't get it to come together, there's nothing wrong with that. Now I'm coming back in using background to just maybe, sharpen up or clean up some of the drawing. I mean, this painting would work with or without this Luminara in the vase. You could replace it with something else. Like over here, you could maybe even, just use another lemon slice, so don't let the Luminara stop you from finishing this painting if you're getting frustrated at all with it. You can also just paint straight through with the background red to create some shadow tones, push some edges around. I feel like, this is kind of like a little more negative space in between these two. So I'm just gonna maybe carve this one down a little bit more. Maybe also just make that one a little shorter. Usually towards the finish too, you're taking breaks, standing back, making sure that you're judging negative spaces between things, heights, all that kind of stuff. Because you don't want to get like just in this kind of mindless painting zone where you're not actually paying attention to what's happening, how everything's relating to one another, I guess I would say. Just very gently, you can add in some of that background red there. Okay, I think lastly here, I will add in a couple more of the stems for overlap. Some of these have these little stems kind of coming off as well. I hope this has been valuable to everybody, helpful maybe to see how to approach something more complex like this, or just over a longer period of time, how to break it up into several days. I don't know, I may want like a luminaire somewhere in here, or just maybe a hint of a piece of debris of one. Just feels like there's a little more empty space in my painting than in the actual still life setup right there. Okay, everybody. All right, let me know if you have any final questions. This has been so much fun to do this with all of you this week. That is going to be too big of a brush. So I'll have to sign that later. You can't really carve in on a dry painting. I'll have to use the liner brush to sign that. And voila, day by day, a little bit each day, 1 hour a day, working on this painting. It's been super, super fun. Okay. All right, everybody. Wishing you all happy Valentine's Day. Super, super fun. Hope you all have a lovely day and do something lovely for yourself as well. Just going to see any last comments we have before we go. You're so welcome, Marty and Maria. Yay! You're so welcome, welcome, welcome. This has been so much fun painting with all of you this week. Okay, everybody. Much love. Happy painting. I'll see you on Monday at 10 a.m. right here. I'm probably gonna switch back to doing some smaller Alla Prima studies next week. All right. Bye for now.